Okay. Hello, everyone. We're just going to take a bit of time for people to join. I hope you're all having amazing days wherever it is you're based. We're going to be kicking off our session on working remotely and managing distributed teams shortly. I think we're going to have a poll coming up in a second where you can fill in a question about the sector that you're in. And then once we've got some results from that, we'll also have a poll about what your working pattern is at the moment so we can see kind of the variety of working patterns that we have in our audience. My name is Jacob. I'm a natural history presenter and speaker. I do a bit of everything, and I'm here with Jamila Daley-Jeffers, who is a consultant with Tabitha's People and also has an incredible portfolio of work behind her and has got a lot of insights on this topic. So it's going to be a really interesting chat that I'm very excited to be a part of. So yeah, thank you for joining. And I think the poll has just come up now. So let us know what sector you're from, be it academia all the way through to media or even other. Let us know what you're working.
I just tried to answer the poll, but I don't get an option to do it.
Oh no, but you can say.
I work mainly in the non-profit sector, so charities and community interest companies. But yeah, I don't have a button to press, so I can't do that.
Make sure you remember that, everyone. Got a great range here.
What's in the non-profit? Okay.
National NGO, fantastic. That's great. We've got 95% turnaround here, which is good. If you've not filled in the poll, make sure that you do, because we have another poll that we'll be jumping onto shortly regarding your working pattern. As you can see, we're both working from home. That's the benefit of these kind of Zoom conferences. Yeah, I say, obviously, I don't actually live in a blurry house. This is a graphic.
And I'm actually not working from my home. I'm working from my friend's home because they have a better white wall than I do.
That's the kind of attention to detail that is guaranteed at the Communicate conference.
Exactly. So should we have a look at the poll answers?
Absolutely. Let's do that. So looks like we've got was it 4% is one person, and then it kind of works up like that. So we've got someone in academia, a couple of people in business, community groups, local government and national government. That's really interesting. So we've got just under 10 people representing there. Lots of people from NGOs. That's great. So Tabitha, which of these sorry, could you Tabitha then? That's the name of your company. Sorry, Jamila. Which of these industries do you think that you've done the most work with?
So for me, it would be NGOs, or organisations, but not necessarily just local, international as well. Local, national, and international. So I kind of bridged two because we didn't include international NGOs, but that's fine. But yeah, no. So with a little smattering of working with corporates to help them work better with charities and non-profits. So yeah, cover a couple of bases, which I'm sure other people do as well or have. I love the fact that we've got no visitor attractions.
No, they're too busy visiting attractions, presumably, to be here.
Okay, so can we move over to the next poll? Let's stop sharing those results. Move over to the next poll, which is around just people's working patterns, just to give us an idea of and a flavour of what people are doing. I'm entirely work from home, but with the occasional pop into my clients' offices. But I can, it's less than one a month at the moment, which is really nice because I don't have to do the commute in the wet and the in the lovely British winter weather.
Charming, isn't it? Charming weather. So everyone, if you let us know what your current working pattern is, as Jamila was saying, mostly work from home. I kind of work in an office as well as being a freelancer. So I often find myself working from home. There's no need to meet people a lot of the time these days, especially in the charming British weather that we're experiencing at the moment. So I found that in my work, working remotely just means that I can talk to more people, which has been really interesting and very convenient, especially when kind of scouting out contracts and that kind of thing. So looks like we've got over 50% of people work from home over 50% of the time. So that's nice. We've got just under 10% entirely in the office, and then we've got 30% entirely working from home, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't actually expecting that. I thought it would be a little bit more skewed towards the office, just because of what's been in the news. I guess that's more around business. I mean, Elon Musk saying like, "Leave your job if you don't want to be in the office."
Oh, tell me about it. Maybe that conversation in the news is kind of a counter to reality then, that more people are working exclusively from home, and that's why there's more of a push towards working in the office. That surprised me as well, actually. That's really interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's why we're seeing so much of it in the news, is because there is more of a push. Like that somebody who's never
Never
been.
believe the media.
I'm going to be honest, I try not to, but occasionally. Um, but yeah, no, that makes sense. But it also makes sense maybe from that non-profit community and charity aspect. A lot of the charities I know and were working and have been working with during COVID moved. They realized they didn't need their office. Depending on what they were doing. So they got rid of it. It was one less overhead that their charity didn't have to pay for. So maybe that's why our results also skewed. Are we seeing any questions or anything? Or because you know me, I will talk until you tell me to shut up. So
yeah, so that's the format that we're going to be running with for the next kind of half an hour or so. Is basically Jamila and I are going to chat about Jamila's experience with remote working, managing distributed teams. And if you've got any questions or comments you want to throw your own experiences in there, it only enhances the conversation. So please interact with us, throw stuff in there, and we can happily chat about your experience. But Jamila, I want to kick off with, in your experience as someone who both has gone from how things were before the pandemic to working much more remotely, and also consulting with people who have undergone that transition as well. What, in your experience, have been the kind of pros and cons of remote working?
So from a personal point of view, so me, the person that's commuting, me, the person that's going into the office. So massive savings on spending on travel, massive amounts of not free time, but more time in the mornings, more time in the evenings, which means that I'm able to invest in my family and friends more. The extra 2 hours a day makes a massive difference, which actually really equates to 10 hours a week, which is over a day you can spend with friends and family. In terms of working from home, one of the pitfalls was that at one point I was then just starting work when I'd leave for my commute and ending when I was due to come home from my commute. So I was putting in extra hours. It took me a little while to make that transition and realize that actually, okay, yes, in my head, I'm headed to work, but it didn't mean that I was starting work. So for me, I put in place things like going for a walk and listening to podcasts, getting myself literally just getting myself ready for the day. As somebody who was also on the other side working in an organization and going into the organization, I really miss, I guess, those water cooler talks. You don't need to book in a whole Zoom meeting to have a whole big conversation, but really what you want is just a quick chat, which I found WhatsApp was the best alternative to that when you're working from home, is just being able to fire off a question to a colleague and them answer. And if it required you jumping on a quick call, then you could. It wasn't anything that you needed to schedule, which kind of replicated what we do in the office. But it also meant that I could safeguard my time. So, for example, if somebody WhatsApped me saying, was I available? And really, I was doing something really quite in depth and needed a lot of brain space, and really and truly I wasn't available, I didn't have to answer it straight away. Whereas when somebody walks over to your desk, you're already interrupted. So that was definitely one of the pros. Again, one of the cons, so I really miss Friday night drinks. I really miss being able to socialize with my colleagues. it's just because then you get to know how people work, how people think, which then helps you working together. So I don't want to sound like that's all I wanted and that I always went out for Friday night drinks, but just realizing that, say, I think the last time I went out to drinks with a colleague was Easter. Like, where,
Ah.
I mean, I do coffees now during the day, but like that evening socialization that you used to do as maybe not even team building, but just relationship building with your colleagues is
Mhm.
it's very different working from home.
That's such an interesting point because just kind of drawing the comparisons in my head when you were talking there, Jamila, and it's kind of like when you've got going to the workplace, it's a kind of embedded routine. You've got a kind of superstructure of I'm going to work out, so I've crossed that dimension. I'm in my workplace, and then I'm here. I'm in this environment. I'm in this atmosphere, surrounded by people, and then there's opportunities for people to come and speak to you, have those interactions, and then you leave and you leave that workplace, or you have the opportunity to go for drinks. And I have found since the pandemic that I've got much more of a I'm working online mentality when I'm in the office, and once I leave, I've logged off, like I've gone, I don't exist. And it kind of feels like that flexibility that comes with remote working, if you're able to manage your own time, is such an asset because you can free flow between your different tasks and what you do. And we've lost that kind of regimented attitude of being in the office, but then we have lost that social benefit of being able to kind of quick fire between people and also build those social connections, become a bit less robotic. We're not just a laptop when we're in the office. We're a face that someone can speak to.
Yeah, yeah, and actually that brings to mind one other thing, which is and I've only just recently started this, and considering this is the tail end of 2023, I am now, instead of doing a to-do list, I put things in my diary to get done, and I try and put no more than 3 things in, mainly in the morning because everything takes longer than you always think. And then I've got time in my afternoon to get things done, or if I get everything done, which is very rarely, I move something forward that I can work with. And it's color coded, so meetings, deep work, like lunch. I realized I used to get to the end of the day and be really hungry and realize I'd completely skipped lunch because I'm at home, so I can go and get food anytime, which meant I wasn't really thinking about it to do it ever. Well, not ever. I mean, I was eating, obviously, but yeah, I could get to the end of the day. I get to 4 or 5 o'clock and realize I've not eaten anything
Yeah.
because I was going to go to lunch. Whereas again, in the office, you've got those cues from those around you that saying, "Oh, I'm heading to Sainsbury's. Does anybody want anything?" Or somebody's using the microwave and you smell something yummy or not so yummy. If anybody's cooking liver at the moment, like that's always a turn off for me. And you get these cues around you that tell you that okay, we're moving to our next thing that we're doing. And you don't always get that at home unless, you're working, and your partner works at home, or you've got kids, or you're working because you're like a flat share, so multiples of, and you're hearing other people moving around. But if you're on your own, then you're not getting those cues. And also, we're not watching the news, so we don't have the news coming on at 12. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. Yeah. Those, I think for me, those are the main pros and cons. I don't think I would ever want to go back to being fully in the office because of the freedom that I've been able to experience, and the knock-on effects the positive knock-on effects I've had in my life. But at the same time, I do miss so much of it. Also, it's the stationery cupboard. I have an unhealthy obsession with stationery, and yeah, stationery cupboards are my go-to place when I'm stressed. Like pens and post-it notes.
That's a great bit of honesty there, Jamila. I think I've got one question on that, and then we might read out a couple of the coming in. But what advice would you have for people who've found themselves thrust into that, maybe they've started a new job recently, even where there is a more enforced work from home element. What advice would you have for people to kind of relate their working day if we've got someone who is maybe a bit more of a perfectionist or a bit of a workaholic, making sure that they break up that day and kind of look after their own health as well?
So I have a series of alarms on my phone, and I may have gone overboard. It wakes me up. It tells me to go out and do my walk, because sometimes it's cold and dark and wet and I don't want to. It tells me to start work or to refocus. It tells me to eat dinner. I mentioned that I skip lunch, but yeah, I've got that one in my calendar, so I don't have that on. It tells me to stop working. I have an alarm to stop working. And sometimes, well, a lot of the time I ignore them, but it's that prompt
Mhm.
outside of myself. I don't have to think about it. Oh, my alarm's gone. Oh, it's dark. Oh, is it 5 o'clock? Oh, it's time to switch off. Or it's time to just start winding down and working out. Sometimes that takes an hour. Sometimes when you're I guess packing up your desk and shutting down your laptop, sometimes you want to put yourself in the best place for the following day, so it might take you a little bit more time. But I have those prompts on my phone. Again, I also have the prompts in my calendar, not necessarily to stop work, but those things like lunch, meetings. Also, I think it's things that just help you keep yourself honest. Whereas,
Mhm.
because at home you've got all the time in the world to get everything done, because you've not got your boss looking over your shoulder or anybody else saying, "Oh, what's she doing now? Like, is she watching YouTube again?" kind of thing. Research, you're researching something on YouTube and then you fall down that rabbit hole. Whereas, yeah, so it's something that helps you just stay on track. That's
Mhm.
what I use. Again, real honesty, I do watch a lot of YouTube videos on uh, productivity, on entrepreneurial productivity, because a lot of these
Mhm.
entrepreneurs are tabletop in your kitchen entrepreneurs. So they're talking about working from home. So I some of their ideas I like, some of the ideas I try and they don't work for me. And also just reach out to your colleagues and say, like, what's working for you, especially if you're new. Like, it's a great opportunity. I mean, to be quite honest, I'd hope that you've got a good enough relationship with your colleagues that even if you're not new and you're struggling with this work from home faff, or tech or something, that there is somebody you can reach out to that doesn't have to be your manager or stuff, and say, you know what, like, what are you doing to combat this? Like, you would do it if you're in the office, so why not do it as a person that's working from home?
That's such good advice. That's really good advice, Jamila. Thank you for that. Let's have a look at some of the comments we've had come in. So Susan has said, I work about 50% in the office and 50% home, but all of my client interfaces are distributed in other European countries. So the colleagues in my office are not working in these distributed teams. So a lot of online meetings. That's a really interesting one. The amount of engagement we can have with overseas colleagues and clients is increased exponentially now that we can, or I suppose beforehand we were still using online calls to chat to these people. So the fact that's been made more normal is fantastic, really.
And
Um,
and I guess then you're also wanting to talk to your manager. So, for example, this morning my first call was at 7:45, and that's because my client's in Malaysia, and that's in order to speak to her, give her enough time to have some day left, but not so early that, like, I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But then sometimes I'm working with one of my clients that was in Australia, and depending on, like, if I was having a 9 p.m. meeting, because it was a global team, so we had people in Canada, we had people in the US, we had people in Australasia. So sometimes I'd be on a call at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm going to be honest, I had to say to my boss, like, I can't put my camera on because I can't guarantee that I'll be awake at the end of this meeting. Especially if I'm not engaging in it. Like, I'm literally just spectating, they're watching. Like, I may fall asleep. Like, this is late.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's so true. I do a fair amount of interviews with people, filmmakers who work overseas, and we're talking to people in, it might be Miami, it might be California, it might be India, and it gives you a bit of perspective, doesn't it? About kind of how the world works and the different time zones for sure. We've got the way designers come in with a comment. Our whole team individually moved out of the city during COVID, so we closed our Bristol office to allow everyone to work from home full time. Never looked back. Slack and Zoom allow us to maintain chats and creativity, although the after work drinks aren't the same. Yes, I imagine that has the lockdown pub quiz energy to it, doesn't it? But that's a fantastic example of the way design of they've moved on, like
Yeah.
they're done and now completely remote. So it's great that you've been able to adapt in that way. And then Aurora has said, I'm about 80% work from home with some site visits and in-person meetings, but most of the people I communicate with for work are scattered across Wales and the UK, meaning most meetings are online. I found that doing online meetings in my loud, busy office is such a pain that I never go into the office unless my diary is empty. Such a good point.
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, this is the reason so my friend's place that I'm in, um, the reason I love it is because my house is on a road where I have three buildings being rebuilt around me. So there's constantly like building noise, which is okay when you're doing a one-to-one, but you don't want that sound. Whereas my friend's place, it's offset from the road. I mean, I think I can hear some like birds in the background, but there's no street noise, there's no anything noise. Can we have a look at the Q&A? I noticed David Heathering, is it David Hetherington? I hope I'm saying.
Hetherington, yeah.
I want to
I think you got it dead on.
ask. So he's said that he wants to work more in the office, but so few people go in now. It seems a bit pointless. May as well stay at home and work on his own. And I was just thinking, like, has he reached out to any of his colleagues? Because he can't be the only one that wants to go in. There are always the weird ones. No, I'm joking when I say that. But there are always others that want to do just literally, and then maybe schedule so you guys go in on the same day, like because it could be that preference for David is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and preference for I don't know Catherine. I'm looking at the next name in the Q&A is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But both of them are thinking, oh, what's the point when nobody is here? Like 2/3 of the time. Well, actually, if they had a conversation and realized that they both wanted to work in 3 days a week, like literally saying, okay, well, how about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? That could, a bit of compromise.
Mm.
Just yeah, literally just have a conversation. Also, I don't know if David's a manager or not, but also having a conversation sort of managerially and saying like what do people want to do, like open the conversation up so it's not just one person having the thought. Open it up, be honest, and say like this is I would love to be able to do this with you guys. And there may be some people that be like, yeah, but I only want to do it every 2 weeks. That's fine, but let those every 2 week days be on the days that David's going in his 3 days a week, so he's still getting his people, they're getting what they want. But you just made it really accessible for everybody.
That's
Um,
great advice. I think I can speak to that experience myself as well. I do a bit of tutoring from time to time if we have interns in the office, and I find it a really useful way to kind of allocate tasks to certain days. Like I quite like regimenting the work that I need to do. So if I'm having a strategy day and I need to work from home, I'll kind of do all of my personal internal work that doesn't require a lot of meetings. If I've got a tutoring day, I'll say everyone who I want to interact with when I'm on one of my social days got my energy together. Let's all be in on this day, and we can kind of make the most of that cauldron of activity going on. So yeah, I think if you can make it work for your everyone's kind of time and everyone's project management, it's really handy. I did spot a quick question in the chat. Any good suggestions for combating team members feeling isolated when working from home? And do you have some ways to create that part of a team feeling? Looks like we've had a bit of a freeze here. I'm not sure if that's me that's frozen or Jamila. Oh, sorry, everyone. Sorry, Jamila. I'm not sure what's happened there.
Literally, the lights went out.
Oh, no. I wasn't sure if it was me that froze, if it was you. I was kind of sat here thinking,
No.
can everyone see me? Or can...
All my lights went out.
Oh, power cut.
But
We still got.
Yeah. Sorry.
Speaking of disadvantages of working from home, if there's a regional power cut, that will affect, but that can happen in the office too.
Yeah. I mean,
Where
I
did we
have
leave
had
you?
that before. I have had power cuts. I've had internet outages working from home. I feel like I did really well. I'm not sure how long I was gone for, but
I don't think it was that long. I think, did you catch the question that I read out?
no.
Oh, fair enough. In which case, let's reset. I believe the question, I've got it here. Have you got any good suggestions for combating team members feeling isolated when working from home? And do you have any ways to create that kind of team feeling?
Okay, so this is, I feel like this is both a double-edged, it's a good thing, but it's also a double-edged sword. So WhatsApp group chats, I feel are good because then you've got that space where you can just reach out, general chat. I also feel that WhatsApp's quite good if you've got a culture where people are more than happy. So when I say double-edged sword, so lay it out that working times are between I don't know 9 and 5. So please don't expect people to respond after these times or before these times. But also one of the things I'm really quite keen on is I share my personal number or my work number and I have it on because there are always moments when somebody needs you, and unlike a WhatsApp message, I feel like I ignore. If somebody's calling me, I feel like that's a little bit more urgent, and we lay out those things. Also, I do a bit of a rotation where you instead of having lunch on your own, you have a virtual lunch with one of your team members or a group of people. Regular, sort of something regular. So I know that one of my networking groups, that's what they do. And one of them, they do it weekly. I haven't been for weeks, but the fact is it's available to me. And, I get, they're quite formal in the sense that you get notes about what was discussed. But, you can, I think the beauty of working from home is that we have, as team members, we have the opportunity to create the environment that we want to inhabit. So my question to the person who asked the question is there anything you want to see or would like to have happen? Is it a case of having a chai latte in prep, even with all the noise, but you get to be out there having that virtual conversation? Or is it popping into the office on the same day as that person so you can have lunch together or something like that? Or is it virtual? Is it all completely virtual because you're living in different areas of the country or different areas of the globe? What do you want to see? And then I guess as somebody that's managing a distributed team, again, you have the opportunity to move your organizational culture on, and some things will work, some things won't. There are always going to be people who say we never did it this way, and there are always going to be people who say that I don't like the way we do things, but you got to try. I know that not everybody likes WhatsApp. I know that not everybody wants to share their personal details in that way. They wouldn't not. I'm just a really good giver out of my mobile number because it always makes my life easier. I always find that in an emergency, that's when people need your mobile number. So things, and that's, so I guess that's flown over or washed over into my thinking. But yeah, no, like, what culture do you want to have now? Like, this is a very different time for us. This is an opportunity for us to develop it in a way that we didn't have the power in during the Industrial Revolution, where basically you got a machine in front of you and you had to do what the machine required. Like, there is no machine. We are all organic parts. Oh, they've got very philosophical there.
Oh my gosh, take that for the book. Yeah, I'm going to jump in there, Jamila, and we've got two more questions in the Q&A. The chat is popping off as well, which is great. So I'm going to keep an eye on the Q&A for questions. Then I've got a question as well about the second part of the name of this session. So Sarah has asked, working virtually has led to a rise in channels available, and my internal comms research with our staff show that staff feel increasingly overwhelmed by the amount of places they can find information. They also feel increasingly burnt out due to back-to-back meetings popping up in their diary. What are your top tips for managing internal communications channels and avoiding information and meetings overload?
Okay, so this is definitely something that okay, so it's two bits of advice. So something that was a washover from when I worked for an organization who had meetings about meetings for the meeting that they were going to have. I wouldn't accept a meeting unless there was an agenda with an action point. Like what was the meeting going to be about, and what was the likely outcomes. And it was actually one of my managers who told me to do this, because they could see I was being run ragged attending all these meetings that actually most of the time I didn't need to be in, because they were either above my pay grade or they weren't anything that I needed to know right now, because no decision had been made, which meant that I didn't have to make any action. So why was I spending 2 hours listening to them talk about whatever they were talking about, and even sometimes inputting, when I could be doing stuff that I needed to do? The other thing is, oh gosh, it's gone. So it was meetings. Okay, it's gone. I'm sorry, Sarah, it is gone. There were 2 points. It will come back to me probably just after we finished, and I link with me on LinkedIn. I'm sure it's coming back to me.
Yeah, post it on LinkedIn. That's make the advice public. Catherine's got a question. So you mentioned missing the water cooler talks. These are those moments where the culture of the organization is passed from colleague to colleague. How do we communicate the culture of the organization effectively if moments like these are no longer possible? I've been working with my organization since January 2020, 6 weeks in the office and then from home, but still don't feel like I fully know the culture of the organization.
Okay. My question to Catherine is, does that affect how you do your job? I mean, I'm all in about knowing the culture, knowing the tone, knowing the voice of your organization, but actually, unless that culture really impacts on how you do your job or how effective you are in your job, I wouldn't worry about it anymore. Like, really and truly, the culture of the organization has probably moved on, because that was office culture. Whereas you've literally taken the office out of the culture. Like, so many things have changed. But I would still recommend meeting with people, having coffee with people. And when I say meeting, I'm still talking about virtual meeting, but meeting with people, having coffees with people, having those discussions, like connecting with people. They're probably people that are, I guess, the sages of your organization, the people that are always passing on good bits of in meetings, good tidbits, things that you never even knew. Those are the people you want to maybe have coffee with. Yeah. Also, so I've just remembered what I wanted to say with Sarah. I would just tell people that they don't have to use all the channels. Like, actually, if people are talking about burnout, I would say as a manager, you should be looking at how many channels you're really using. Are they all effective? Do people really know how to use them? And then maybe whittle some out. Because do we really need them? Like, if people are facing burnout and information overload, then maybe there's just one or two too many. That's just
That's
my
fantastic.
personal opinion.
That's a really good answer. Thanks, Jamila. Now, I've spotted a comment that I liked, so I'm going to read that out, and then I've got a question. So Nina Beadle at northyorkmoors.org.uk, that's near from where I'm from, so that's exciting to know that you guys still exist. I'm not exclusively internal comms, I'm press office too, but I have a whole soapbox rant about why I believe our internal audiences are the most important for lots of the reasons being discussed in this session. Post that rant. We want to see it, Nina. Get it on LinkedIn. We'll have a look. We'll give it a repost. That's fantastic. So the other half of this session, or the other name of this session, is managing distributed teams. And Jamila, I wanted to ask for the managers out there who maybe they're new to management, maybe they're new to this type of management, and are a bit nervous about being able to supervise, or maybe they're worried about over supervising, something like that. What kind of tips do you have for curating a team who are working kind of out of sight?
So I think just really being clear on both sides about expectations, deadlines. I worked with a boss, and while it was great in the office, I realized that if I ever worked with them again, I would literally lose my hair, because they would be like, "Oh, let's get it done," but there wouldn't be a deadline. Whereas that meant that I could probably spend as long as I thought. But then because they're not seeing me working on it, they're probably thinking, how long is this taking? How long is this taking? Is she working on this? Is she working on this? Whereas if somebody's giving you a deadline and you've worked out what needs to be done, then you know that, or hopefully that if there is any problems, they'll come back to you before the deadline and you can discuss and work out a plan. There is nothing worse than somebody coming to you after a deadline saying, oh, I'm going to miss the deadline. But yeah, just make sure that everybody has the same expectations. So that may mean asking them to repeat things back, or in their own words, kind of like just make sure that you're all on the same page, clear up any misunderstandings. I mean, as somebody who works for multiple organizations, I find myself falling over in that all the time, where I start working and I'm like, there's 3 more questions I needed to ask actually to achieve this. But it's a learning process. It's not like anybody's born with these skills. Is there anything else? I am all in for, I'm going to be honest, YouTube videos. I've learned so much about working styles and, like working as a team, leading teams, leading in things that I didn't feel qualified yet, but had been given responsibility for, which is always fun. Because yes, you get the sort of blanket answer from HR and further up, oh, well, tell us what training you need. But it's a case of you don't know what you need because you don't know what you don't know. So that's why YouTube is a great place. You can, management styles. You might find somebody that you like. And it may actually be something that's not even related to your field, but there's still always nuggets around what you can learn. Again, you're working you may be a new manager or current manager, but there must be other managers. Like, I don't know, do you have a managers meetup? Should you suggest that, so that actually managers have a forum and a space to go to talk about the fact that their team's not achieving and they hate them all? I'm sure that's not the conversation, but you know what I mean, like somewhere that
In
they
a
can
safe
go and,
space.
yeah, as managers, and things that they can bat up to further up the chain and back down to their teams. So for example, the lady that was saying about the too many channels. Well, actually, are any of the other managers of teams having a similar thing? Like, what have they put in place? Or is it a case of everybody's feeling this and, we really need to look at this organizationally? Yeah.
That's a really good point. Now we've got just over 5 minutes left. So if you've got questions, we'll do some quick fire mastermind type questions. If you throw them in about this topic, not just general knowledge, throw them in and we'll get Jamila to answer them. Rachel's put a response to the culture question in the Q&A. I find it's about feeling like I belong to the organization. A sense of belonging is important and helps people to feel content, happy / fulfilled.
Okay. So I guess for me then, I feel like that's less around culture and more around feeling part of the organization, if that makes sense. So there are lots of organizations that I have worked with, that I've had no clue about the culture or the dumb way of things, but I've made some good friends. I've made some good colleague connections that have just made me feel very much part of the team. Like that we're striving together to achieve something. And I don't know if that's different from culture. Because for me personally, I think of culture as knowing what the history is of the organization, knowing where the organization is going, knowing where we are right now. But for me, that wouldn't necessarily make me feel any more connected to the organization. Whereas those relationships with the people in the organization are the be all and end all, and probably why, as a result, I have and kept in contact with so many of my ex-colleagues, because these relationships where then you can talk about what's going on for you, what's happening with work,
you
get
can
advice.
still see me. I don't know if we might have just lost Jamila for a second there. If we've lost me.
I don't. Well, I'm still moving. You're not. I mean, okay. So this is one for the chat. So you can hear Jamila, and is Jamila moving? Jamila's moving. Is Jacob moving? No. Okay, so this time was your tech issue on your side.
Apparently, was it me? Have I
we're both
gone?
moving. Jacob's back. We're both moving. That's so funny. Isn't the beauty of working from home, internet, technology, like it's
my advice for working from home is don't live somewhere haunted, because ghosts ruin these kind of sessions, I think. Okay, shall we see has anything else come up in the chat or in the Q&A before I left us for a second? There's some really nice, I love the conversations that are going on here. So Rachel has said, we have weekly reflection meetings when we run through what's gone well and what hasn't that week. It's a good way to listen and feel part of the team. I can relate to that. In our office, we do a Tuesday morning catch up. We've got our peak and our pit, where we kind of talk through everyone's, the words, my watchword of the last year since starting this company is capacity. People say, what is in your capacity? Is it in your capacity to do this? I found out I quite like saying the word as well, using it so much. People ask you, yeah, it's such a buzzword. And just that idea of checking in and not to use the name of the event, but communicate is so important, especially in this new environment, isn't it?
Yeah. And I honestly do believe that in working from home, connection with your colleagues, connection with the outside world. So this week, so in the last 7 days, I've had 3 coffees with people that I kind of like. Okay, so technically working time, but I started my day later. It was in my diary, finished my day later. But it connected me to the outside world. It connected me to people. I do feel like I sometimes go a little bit crazy because I don't get to talk to everybody or anybody in a day. I can get to the end of the day, and then whoever walks through my front door is then bombarded with, I don't want to say verbal drivel, but just whatever. It's like, I can talk to you, you're a person, sort of crazy energy. I love what Aurora Hood said about you can't talk about working from home without tech issues. Yeah, without
so
doubt.
True.
And I'm going to pop in my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me. Like, again, let's just think of this as a community in itself where we can support each other. So yeah, whether you're a manager or I like to call us minions, but that's because I really like the Minions movie. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Well, yeah, I guess we're into the wrapping up spiel because we've got 20 seconds left. Thank you so much, Jamila, for your input, because it's been fantastic. And I can say Jamila's LinkedIn is fantastic. It's popping off. It's one of the best LinkedIns on the internet. So you need to get over there and so I'm throwing you forward for this, but if you want to ask any questions to Jamila, it's very easy for me to say, go and do that. But I think this is a topic that we could easily have done a 3-hour epic Zoom about to talk about all the different elements. So I'm really glad that we got to chat.
And I think I'm probably going to do so. I'm trying to post LinkedIn posts twice a week. So I think my Tuesday post will be around what we've talked about today.
Amazing. That'd be
It's just given me so
fantastic.
much like. But thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being part of the chat. Thank you all for your questions. And thank you for being you and working with whatever this is that they call work from home stroke hybrid. Like let's just carry on navigating it.
Yeah, definitely. And let's all meet up in person at some point, just for the irony of it
Yes.
as well.
Friday night drinks.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jamila. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Pick up your books, go on to your next class. I hope you're enjoying Communicate. This is day 3. So, yeah, make the most of it. Thank you again, Jamila. And we'll see you all in Zoom sometime, I suppose.
Yeah, in the Zoomverse. Thank you very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys. See you later.